Good evening. I will start the, good evening. I will call to order the Finance Committee meeting on May 1st, 2023 at 7 p.m. We have one item on the agenda this evening, a proposed tax increment financing, a TIF. I will begin with order number 23-100-8868, communication from Mayor Vigent together with proposed tax increment financing agreement with Moderna TX, a biotech company with plans to purchase and operate a biomanufacturing facility and office space at 149 Haynes Memorial Drive, map 99, parcel 3. And I will begin by reading the letter submitted by the mayor. Honorable President Ossing and councilors, please find the enclosed for your review a tax increment financing, a TIF, agreement with Moderna TX Incorporated. Moderna, a biotech company currently based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, with plans to purchase 149 Hayes Memorial Drive, a 24-acre parcel of land combined with a new 140,000 square feet empty biomanufacturing facility to house manufacturing and office space. Moderna will create and maintain a minimum of 200 permanent full-time jobs available to qualified Marlborough residents at this facility. Moderna has plans to add 60,000 square feet to a maximum build-out with a total capital investment estimated at $322,200,000 combined soft and real property cost. Additionally, they are applying for certified project status from the Economic Assistance Coordinating Council for a local-only application. Moderna, a leader in biotechnology recognized for its COVID-19 vaccine, is creating a new generation of transformative medicines for patients and currently employs 3,900 across the globe. Moderna currently has 48 mRNA messenger RNA is a type of single-stranded RNA involved in protein synthesis programs in their pipeline. In 2022, their platform technology delivered world-first ever mRNA cancer treatment to show efficacy in a randomized phase 2 study, and they continue to develop individualized treatment and therapy for disease. In addition to its success in biotechnology, Moderna is a distinguished employer, has earned the following accolades. 2021 and 2022, Time 100 recognized as most influential companies. 2022 ranked #1 in large employer category in biotech's best place to work. 2021 ranked #1 Fast Company best workplace for innovators. 2021 ranked #1 among Fortune's Change the World vaccine makers. 2021 MP360 Pharma Company of the Year. Due to its commitment to life science industry, Marlborough is rated a platinum bio-rated community by the Massachusetts Biotechnology Council. This puts the city among the most favorable biotech destinations in the state. This investment equates to new job opportunities in our community and additional tax revenue, ensuring the tax burden does not fall solely on the residents. All active TIF agreements are monitored and tracked by MEDC on a continual basis to ensure job numbers and other commitments surrounding annual reporting and investments are being met. Enclosed for your review are the following: preliminary application for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, intent to apply, the resolution, and the fourth one is the TIF agreement. I look forward to discussing with you further. Sincerely, Arthur G. Vigent, Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. If you would like to, and Meredith, if you'd like to do your introductions, please. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do your introduction. Thank you.
You got it? Great.
If you have it, you have to come up.
You should have told me that before.
Would you like me to face?
When the boss comes up, everyone comes up, all right?
Am I pointing it?
Mr. Chairman and members, first of all, thank you very much for taking the time tonight. We're really excited about about bringing Moderna here to the city of Marlborough. We've been working with them for a little while now because it went really, really, really quick, kind of like their vaccine did. They got it through pretty quick, but we're excited to get one of the spec buildings that we had in the city. We talked about the fact when other people in the real estate industry said you won't see another spec building for quite a while. We had 2 being built in the city of Marlborough, and we're fortunate to have Moderna taking one of those buildings. And before they even move in, they're going to be doing some renovations in there within the footprint of the current building, adding 60,000 square feet more to the facility. So they'll be bringing a minimum of 200 jobs here. The numbers look a little bit higher than that, but we wanted to use the conservative numbers. I think when you take a look at the spread over the 20 years, again, we didn't use any increases in values or anything, but we're excited, and I'll turn this over to the Moderna team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening.
Good evening. So thank you very much for having us here. We're very honored and happy to be in the town of Marlborough. Very familiar with the town, the business-friendly climate, and we're excited to share with you a high-level review of Moderna as a company, as well as any specific questions you have about what we intend to move forward with in the facility. So first off, we'll do yeah, very good. So my name is Scott Nickerson. I'm Senior Vice President of Manufacturing at Moderna.
Irina Bonacci, Director of Tax at Moderna.
George Stellen, Senior Director of Capital Programs at Moderna. And Jeff Larson. Oh, all right.
We've got an extra one here for you.
We'll cover everything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Of course. So like I said, you have the presentation, I think, in handouts in front of you, but I'm going to walk through the slide deck. Feel free to interrupt me and ask questions that you have along the way. But I'm going to start off really at a macro view to give you a background of where we are as a company, and then get a little more specific about where we are in our evolution. So first off, high level, we are, a number of, you've seen us in the news probably recently with, of course, the COVID vaccine. I think a number of, for those of you not familiar with Moderna, you may think we're this large company that's been around for a very long time. Actually, we've been founded in 2010, so we're a very young company. But we have a very exciting and pioneering technology that we're very passionate about because we believe it's going to do a lot of good in human health, not only in what was demonstrated in the COVID vaccine race, but to come, and that's what this facility is about. The company's developing therapeutics and vaccines in a number of different areas, including infectious disease, immuno-oncology, rare disease, autoimmune, and cardiovascular diseases. mRNA really we see as a platform technology that can be applied in a number of different areas in human health. As of 2023, we have 48 programs in different phases of development, and I'm going to get into a little bit of the detail of what that means and where those programs are, including 36 in clinical trials. Across 7 different modalities. We have 4,900 employees globally, with 3,400 of those employees in the Massachusetts area. Just to calibrate for you the amount of growth that we've had over the past number of years, prior to the pandemic, or at the beginning of the pandemic, at the end of 2019, early 2020, we were around 750 to 800 employees total for the whole company, and we were based just in the Cambridge and Norwood area. Okay, so to get into a little bit of more specifics on the next slide, our pipeline, if you look at the blue line across the top, that talks about those different clinical programs and where they are in different, what we call phases of development, and those are essentially advancements of those different programs into different stages of testing. We, of course, have our commercial product, which is our COVID-19 vaccine, which is commercially branded as SpikeVax. And then as different variants come along, we will be producing different vaccines for the annual season. We have 4 different programs in phase 3, which are essentially large-scale trials finalizing efficacy or understanding of efficacy of the vaccine or therapeutic. We have 9 in phase 2, including one that's somewhat unique that we call PCV, which is our personalized cancer vaccine. So this is truly a personalized therapy in the oncology field. And of course, our next generation boosters. So overall, though, 48 development programs, which is quite a large number to have in flight. If you look across those programs, then in what groupings they're in, for those different development programs, we have our respiratory vaccines, which includes, of course, COVID, but other respiratory vaccines, including RSV, flu, HMPV, PIV, and RSV plus HMPV. So what we're working on in the respiratory space is to look at different vaccines and combo them so that instead of having to get multiple shots, like a flu and a COVID, you can just get one shot. We have a portfolio of latent vaccines, so these are viruses that may be latent in the body but not necessarily showing effect, and targeting those. And then we have our public health vaccines, which are Zika and Nipah. And then a wide variety of therapeutics, including those that I mentioned in immuno-oncology, also in rare disease, in cardiovascular and autoimmune. So a wide variety of clinical programs targeting a number of different diseases, whether they be respiratory or latent viruses or in therapeutic areas. I mentioned the number of employees. We're very proud of our status as being a top employer. We obviously can't do this without good people, so we've been really working hard to make Moderna a place that employees want to come and work. With the COVID pandemic and the expansion of our commercial vaccine, we've opened up commercial subsidiaries around the world, which was a big effort for us over the past couple of years. And then with that, we have accumulated a significant amount of cash that we can now put towards really the very expensive clinical trials that are necessary to prove out whether or not these different vaccines and other therapeutics work. And we're putting that to work in these 48 development programs. Next slide. We can't do this alone. So we have a number of partners that we have worked with over the years and currently, including other large pharma companies, but also philanthropic organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And the partnerships with those have evolved over time and continue to as we expand our portfolio of development programs. Next slide. So if we look specifically at the proposed investment plan for the site here in Marlborough, we're interested obviously in the 149 Hayes Memorial Drive site. Why that was important to us, or why that site fit for Moderna, was one, the town itself. We've done our homework, and it definitely is a business-friendly climate here. The location was great from a number of perspectives, and its proximity to Cambridge and Boston, but also the talent pool that allows us to access, along with the standard and cost of living in the area outside the city. And then the site itself is already somewhat advanced in that the building itself has been built out, which really saves us time, frankly, in taking the next steps to build out the inside of the facility. You can see the numbers here around the project investment. We're looking at it in really 2 high-level phases, one being delivered in 2024, and the next phase being delivered in 2025. I can answer specific questions that you may have there, but the thought is it's a 140,000 square foot facility. We're going to get it to 200,000 square feet by putting some steel in to allow the second floor to be fully built out. But we don't need to build out the entire box on day one, which is why you see the 2 phases. Okay. Next slide. This talks about the job creation plan and just give you a feel for the types of employees that we'll be looking to hire into that space. And really, it's a wide variety of backgrounds and skill sets that we need. Obviously, we need manufacturing operators to run the plant, and those are typically individuals with life science degrees that we hire into those roles. Engineers, scientists, process development chemists and biochemists, and then your standard office and administration personnel. In the near term, we're obviously going to bring on a large number of temporary construction jobs to help build out the inside of the facility, and subcontractors that support those construction firms. Next slide. I think it's it's obvious the economic impact that we could hopefully bring to the area by bringing in new employees to the area that are going to buy and build houses in the area and live here and grow their families here as they hopefully come on for a long tenured stay at Moderna. We very much invest in our employees for the long term, not just the short term. And so we're very focused on that. I'm very personally familiar with the area. I live in the neighboring town of Shrewsbury and have spent a number of my dollars with my 4 children at your lovely Apex entertainment facility. So very familiar with Marlborough myself, and have seen how the town is progressed over the years. Next slide. We're very proud of our and passionate about our engagement in the community itself. Our first major move in expansion outside of the Cambridge area was in the Norwood, Massachusetts area, where you may know we have a pretty large campus that has well over 1,000 employees there. We have a number of programs at the corporate level, but also at the site level where we have STEM programs, we offer internships and college co-ops, and we have a large focus on volunteerism to the point where our HR benefits package actually allows for days off to go donate your personal time towards your charity or time of choice. So we could get into any of those specifics that you would like to hear more about, but we're very passionate about engaging in the community that we're in because we definitely see it as a partnership. Next slide. I think that's it. That was a very high-level speed through of our plans. I'm happy with my colleagues here to answer any questions you may have about our plans with the facility or the expansion.
Okay, I'm going to say thank you very much for the presentation. Welcome to the City of Marlborough. I just want to hit on some of the financial parts too, because I think it benefits looking at that side as well, that you're going to be a wonderful neighbor for the city. I did like seeing the cash on hand that you have per share. You've done very well over the last few years with revenue. I'd like to also point out your research and development. So you're showing that you're reinvesting in the community. And certainly you hit on the therapeutics. I think that's certainly in big demand, having that with the research and development. So those are certainly all pluses.
Yes.
I think those are just strong attributes that would bring success for the City of Marlborough. And I'll open it up to the Finance Committee and to the rest of the council for any questions.
Thank you.
Councilor Dumas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if we could just talk more specifically regarding the jobs that you plan on creating. I see the list from manufacturing all the way down to office administration. Would that include maybe a high school internship all the way to maybe advanced degrees, bachelor's degrees? Like what specifically qualifications for the 200 jobs? Ballpark.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say the majority of the jobs are degreed individuals. There's a small percentage that could be non-degreed, I would say in the non-specialized areas like logistics and in warehousing. And then we do offer internships, and those could be specific to the Marlborough area or even Cambridge or Norwood as well. But the majority of the jobs will be degreed.
Bachelor's, master's?
Yes.
Both. Okay.
Yeah, both. Okay. I would say the majority, the largest percentage of the jobs within this list are the manufacturing jobs themselves, because what we're going to ultimately build out here are multiple shifts that will probably end up going 24/7, and to fill out a 24/7 shift operation, you need a large number of operators to do that, and we typically hire those as degreed individuals, everything from straight out of school, BS, BA, okay. Degreed individuals to more advanced individuals that may have a master's. Typically not need a PhD necessary, okay. More bachelor's.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Councilor Orm.
Thank you very much. Thank you for introducing everyone too, and I'm glad you're all here. We've seen other companies come in for TIFs, and I have some general questions I ask of every company that's looking for a TIF. Sure. Is this your first request for a TIF? Did you ask for one in Norwood?
We did.
Okay, so this isn't your first request then?
That's correct.
Did it get approved in Norwood?
It did.
Yeah, it's our carrot too, just so you know. I respect you asking for it.
And I personally presented it a number of years ago.
And again, your company is very well off. I'm glad to see that in respect to the amount of money you're generating as well as spending on, as was mentioned, research and so forth. Lab classification, do you get classified like a lab? Are you going to be like a level 1, 2, 3? I hope not 4.
No. Yeah. Do you know the lab
I think it's BSL2
Two.
is
Level
the
2?
qualification. Yeah.
So you will have all the proper precautions in place.
Absolutely, all the proper airflows, et cetera, that goes into the design of the overall facility. Yep.
Excellent. And we have water and sewer. Hopefully that was an attraction as well as our great highway system. So,
Definitely helps. And the location does matter for us for sure.
and they'll work with you on any type of needed retention on sewage or whatever, but I'm not for sure how your manufacturing works. But that all happens with the review. Let's see, the next question I had is the you're returning to us new growth. You're planning to spend $350 million plus, give or take. So that really impresses me. So again, that's considered new growth. You're not exempt from new growth in respect to taxes, but you will be taxed at your base, if I read it right, and then any new growth that increases your value won't be taxed, is the way I read the TIF. Correct me if I'm wrong?
That's correct. That's the way I understand.
Okay, I just want to make sure I saw you looking down saying, wait a minute, that's not what we...
No, I'm just checking my notes.
That's okay.
I don't want to misspeak. Yes.
And just about 3 more. I'm sorry to take up
No, you're
all the
fine.
time, but let's see. As it relates to, I'm very impressed by your charitable foundation, your fund. It's called a charitable fund, and benefits to Marlborough would be, I hope, actively engaging with our school system. I know MEDC was working with various businesses to try to get interns, was mentioned earlier, into your firm, as well as getting into our schools, STEM. It's great to hear that. I think it's an open engagement, and I expect your company will move forward with that type of work with us in our school systems. And we have 3 high schools, one's a technical school, so.
Yeah, we fully intend to do that, and just to maybe give you an example of how we do that, at Norwood, we have engaged with different schools there and actually brought students in for like a STEM day and exposed them to the environment and brought them even through the facility. So it's something that we find important and we have already done, and we'll do it again here.
Great. Well, that's music to my ears. Thank you for that. As it relates to qualifying, so I guess it would work within the school system. If I'm a resident of Marlborough and I'm looking to go into a certain field, I've already graduated from high school, will there be opportunities for people to tune into your company or check in with you to see what they may need for a bachelor's if I wanted to work at your manufacturing plant?
Of course, yeah. There's a number of ways that you can engage with us, but we're definitely happy to, I would say, provide education on what's necessary to advance in this field. I'm personally passionate about it, so I can come speak to teams if you'd like me to do that. And we have team members that would be willing to do that, I'm sure.
That would be excellent.
Yeah, it's the STEM career path. There are a lot of different ways and pathways an individual can take, and we've got a number of people that obviously been down that road that would be happy to share, what that journey looks like.
Possible colleges they may want to attend that type of thing, because I know you're trying to get 200 qualified Marlborough residents, but hopefully we have 200 qualified Marlborough residents for your type of manufacturing, but if not, it's good to hear you might be able to give them guidance in some way. I'm interested in your field, your area. I'd like to work there. What do you suggest I do for my college career?
That's
something
great.
like that. So you could bring that into the schools as well.
Of course.
Let's see.
And maybe one other point on that.
Sure.
I mean, for us, it's not just about the 200 people that start day one.
No,
It's the 200 that are 10 years out, and that's where it's so important to build those relationships and get that understanding of what people need to step into roles coming into the future.
And I'm sure Norwood's happy of the way you handled it there too, and hopefully they have
That's the
some.
hope. Yeah.
Any of you from Norwood? No, I'm just curious. Marlborough, by the way, has a great residential tax rate, and you might want to check that. The reason I'm getting glares behind you is our city clerk lives in Shrewsbury.
Well, that's definitely something that's important. Obviously, when we hire these individuals, they're going to need to find housing, and
Sure.
so
No, and that's great. And it's a win-win in my view. You noted in your presentation about the Norwood Chamber of Commerce, and Marlborough has a Chamber of Commerce as well. And we also have various clubs in Marlborough that are service organizations, such as the Lions, Marlborough Junior Women's Club, the Rotary Club, and we all work well together. We're going to actually have a family festival this Sunday, so I'm putting a little pitch in for us at this point. But hopefully you'll be working with our chamber, as well as maybe considering joining one of your employees may want to consider joining one of our clubs, our service organizations. So I'm a Rotarian, so I'm putting a plug in for us as well. But we don't see corporate America like we used to see back in the digital equipment age. And I don't know if it's because they don't have the time to participate, and I was very impressed to hear within your HR policy that they are not required, but is it required? Is it required to participate?
Yeah, it's actually, you guys can chime in, it's a well thought out program that we offer the time off to actually go spend your time in a philanthropic way, but we don't prescribe it. We allow the individual we allot them a certain amount of time that's paid to go do that, but we let them choose where they want to spend their time, which is actually really nice because everybody's passionate about different things.
Well, I'm always looking for guest speakers for the Marlborough Rotary Club, so you may be getting a call once you move in.
Yeah.
And just last but not least, it's on page 5. You had mentioned description. You were just going over some of your information. It's F on page 5. It says a description of any private investment, including but not limited to donations and or perpetual maintenance of land for recreational purposes made by the company for the benefit of the community during the reported period. That's part of our report. Do you have any idea? Do you do any of that in Norwood where you can show you're keeping up a recreational field or you're doing something else to benefit the community? Just curious if you've thought that out yet.
Yeah, I mean, we have a charitable foundation within Moderna that we can assess different opportunities to consider donation to. So I think on an ad hoc basis we can talk about that with the town.
Excellent.
Is that fair?
Yep. And that's it. I thank you for your answers, and again, your company is very impressive. I've known about your company. I used to work in public health. I still do, but thank God we had vaccines. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Orm. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman Irish. Thank you. I wanted to say that as the building was getting built, I was really curious what might go there. And I would have to say, hearing that Moderna would come into that space far exceeded my expectations. And from a business and community standpoint, I feel like it would be mutually beneficial. It seems like a great space for you, and I feel like many of the things we've heard tonight shows that it would also be great for our community. And as other councilors have mentioned, one of the things that really stood out to me was the slide that you showed about how you involve yourself in your communities. I also worked for a company once that did the hours that you could use for community service, and I thought that was really cool. So I love also hearing that you do that. I just had one question as far as technicality would be concerned. So in the application, the Massachusetts office, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts application on the job creation schedule, it just didn't exactly match the one that was on page 18 of my original, the 10-18 packet, where it looked like, hold on, let me go back to that page. I'm going off the single-sided copy because I was working off the one from our other packet. I apologize if it doesn't match up. But on that application page for the Commonwealth, it says that in 2024, there would be 50 jobs created, 2025, 100 jobs created, 2026, 50 jobs created. On the other page that was on that packet, that's what it looks like. It says there's 50 jobs in 2024 and 150 in 2025. So that at that point in 2025, we would have the 200 jobs created. So I was just wondering which one was accurate.
I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, yes, Meredith, thank you.
Thank you, Director Harris. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
it's cute.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
But the number, do the numbers net out to be the same, or the ones can?
Correct. So it's 200 jobs total that are being created. It's the 50 in the first year. I believe it was 50 in the next year, and then 100 in the second year, and then 50 in the third year. In our sheet, it's showing the cumulative, so at that year, they need to have 200 for the rest of those years. Does that make sense?
Okay. I was
It's a
wondering if I was looking at it the wrong way, but what you said makes perfect sense. Thank you so much. I have no further questions. Thank
question,
you.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you.
Councilor Perlman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for the presentation and for coming to Marlborough. It's exciting to hear about the work of Moderna, and definitely, as was mentioned before, very appreciative of the organization's work during the pandemic. Definitely an asset to have here in Massachusetts, and excited that there's investment in Marlborough. I did have a couple of questions. The first about the Norwood facility. I know there was talk of a previous TIF there. I wondered what year that TIF was implemented, and was it also 20 years?
I don't want to misspeak, but I believe it was around 20 years, and I think we may have had, we've had a number, the campus in Norwood started off, I can speak personally to this because I've been with the company for 7 years and was there when we picked Norwood initially. The Norwood site started off as one building, about a 200,000 square foot building just like this, and it has now since expanded into multiple buildings north of 650,000 square feet. And so it's not just one TIF.
There were three.
There's three. So it's been a series, and this began, I get this right, we picked Norwood in 2016. The first building came online in the middle of 2018. And then we've had subsequent projects as we've grown. We go fast. So there's been a number of projects to answer your question. Is that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, that's helpful.
To answer the question, it's not a 20-year, it's a 10-year for each of the ones that are there. And one, I think, fairly significant difference is we actually lease the land there in the buildings. We don't own like we're doing.
Right.
So
Okay.
pretty significant difference.
I appreciate that context. And is the 20 years, is there a particular reason why that was selected for this particular TIF?
Just as we think of building out and as we think of getting it up and continuing the investment in the future, I mean, it just, rather than coming back each time like we have done with Norwood as we've added new buildings and added new things, having something with a longer duration just seemed to make the most sense.
Okay, because from the job creation, it seems like the jobs stabilize after 3 years, right? And so is a lot of that continued building and investment more about the infrastructure of the facility itself rather than kind of creating new job opportunities beyond that?
I think it's safe to say that we tried to estimate low, just to ensure we could meet the requirements that we're putting forward. But as we just explained in the Norwood example, our trajectory has been pretty hyper growth. So we obviously don't fully know what the 4 or 5 years from now looks like, but we're projecting what we can say right now, and then we'll continue to communicate as the picture gets clearer and clearer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it was exciting to hear about the growth that you mentioned in Norwood about other buildings. Is that something you also see with Marlborough, that you're starting out now and there would be a possibility to grow in the future? And from at least the presentation, it seems like there is rapid growth, which is exciting, and that the company is growing since 2010. I mean, that's a lot to have happened so quickly. So wondering what that might look like within the 20 years and beyond.
Yeah, so I obviously can't promise anything. I'd be remiss if I did that. What I can say is what I know about having worked at this company for 7 years. We know and believe that this is typical pharmaceutical development in companies of this age. They're picking a therapy or a vaccine and that they go after, and there's 1 or 2 programs, and then they try to get those across the finish line from a phase 3 into commercial. And Moderna has been a little bit different from the get-go in that it's a totally new technology and an approach to medicine. And so we truly see mRNA technology as a whole new platform, a whole new way of making medicine. And with that, what the pandemic did is it really, if you think about it, it obviously did a lot of good in human health in the time that we lived through the pandemic. but it also accelerated the proof of concept of mRNA technology in general. And so now that's what we're dealing with right now, is we're taking this proof of concept and reinvesting those dollars back into accelerating this base platform into so many different areas of need, whether it be the infectious disease, respiratory virus space, the latent vaccines. Personally, if you're asking my personal excitement, I'm very excited about the future of oncology and rare disease and the potential impact that it can have on, again, this is, I'm speaking in high-level comments here. I'm very excited about the potential of what this platform can do in other areas of human health. And so I guess to answer your question, we can't promise where we'll be 4 or 5 years from now. All I can promise is that we're investing very aggressively and heavily in R&D spend to advance those 48 clinical programs, and there's more coming, and get those across the finish line into commercial production so we have these products coming to patients.
Thank you. And no, that's very helpful. I was just curious of like Norwood as a case example, and obviously no promises about what the future would hold, but interested in seeing what that trajectory is, because ideally a company like Moderna is looking at a city or town that they want to move into and seeing, okay, how could we actually continue to grow in this community rather than, okay, the 20 years happens and then we move. And this is a question we've asked a lot of other companies that have come forward. Were there other communities in Massachusetts that you were looking at besides Marlborough?
We actually looked at a number of places, not just in Massachusetts, but outside of the state, in the kind of the northeast corridor. And we looked at a number of different things, including just the business climate here, the ability to hire good talent. So where is it physically located? As I mentioned, the specifics around what had already been invested here, so the timelines. As I mentioned, we moved very quickly, and so the fact that that facility was sitting there ready to go for us to build out basically took 12 to 18 months off of our timeline.
Exactly.
And so that was an initial cut, frankly, was Greenfield was not on our list. It was brownfield for us. And in this case, it was a great brownfield because it's a brand new box. So.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. And I know some folks already touched on, all of the volunteer work, which I think is wonderful, the local talent kind of both in terms of the 200 jobs, and I know there was some talk of 250, so I'm sure that's dependent on what the growth looks like when the facility is built out. Because it said 200 to 250, I believe, in the letter that you all submitted, and then on the application 200, and then what was presented in the TIF itself 200, which is what you're being stuck to, but obviously if there is a higher amount, we welcome that. Have community members, or I guess employees stayed in the community? I know you mentioned that we want people, to live in the community, and housing's been a discussion on this council for a little bit, so I'm just curious if that's something that's encouraged by Moderna to say, hey, we want you to be able to live closer to where you work. We can help facilitate that, and what does that look like so far? I know, obviously Cambridge has its own housing challenges, but wondering if that's something that you're envisioning for the Marlborough location.
The specific question
around having employees live in the community, or if they'd just be commuting from elsewhere.
I mean, it's ultimately their decision, obviously, but affordable housing in Massachusetts, as you know, is a big challenge right now. I can tell you we're hiring a large number of employees out at the Norwood site still as we speak, and I have personal conversations with those individuals about the ability to find affordable housing. It's a big challenge right now. So, and then obviously everyone's familiar with the pains of commuting in the Massachusetts area. I personally deal with it. So yes, it's ultimately their decision, but finding housing within the town of Marlborough or proximal to it is very important for us, for quality of life for those individuals.
And I think add to it that these jobs are on-site jobs, so a lot of the remote worker situation, Moderna has really strayed away from that. I mean, obviously during the pandemic, everyone had to be with Scott to produce the vaccine. Similarly here, we need these people on-site daily. So again, short commute, therefore living in the community would be a big attraction.
That's a great point to call out. Yeah, different industries or businesses, are more set up to be able to do the virtual, meeting, and you can't make drug from your living room.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
They need to be on site,
running
the instrumentation or the machinery or the equipment necessary to produce high quality product.
Right, and that's a good point. I know Mayor Vision has done a good job on the other ones to indicate directly that they're on-site jobs. I know that's something that has been a priority even, when we were even more in the pandemic and folks were working remotely, that was a concern that these jobs would be, remote, and then we wouldn't have folks kind of living and working and spending in Marlborough. I just want to touch on one last point around the local use of businesses and what that looks like. I'm sure there's been case studies in your other locations of how you've been able to incorporate kind of a local community connection, both in terms of, catering or use of different businesses and what you envision that looking like. That's something that, it's harder for us to really track, but definitely is encouraged, and, there's no shortage of businesses to use here.
Yeah, I can give some specific examples maybe to illustrate it, and there's many more that I'm going to share. There are many, many opportunities and needs to have off-site meetings, whether they be quarterly or annual business planning meetings, staff meetings, town halls. We typically don't, and we're not going to build it here to have an auditorium that seats 250 employees. I just had this a few weeks ago in Norwood. So typically what we do is rent, off-site space in local hotels to be able to host those meetings, bring in catering as necessary to support those. We just did this in Norwood for about 300 people for my town hall for manufacturing recently, and those happen quite frequently, both across all the groups, but also functionally the need for off-sites. We recognize sometimes it's necessary to get out of the daily fray and go somewhere else so that you can clear your brain and work on strategy and collaborate together. And then I would say one other thing, with the business that we're in, we bring in and partner with a lot of outside vendors, whether they be engineering firms, equipment manufacturers, et cetera, and that requires those individuals to come meet us. They will be staying in your local hotels. We'll be using restaurants, obviously, to host them and meet them and have business meetings. And so there are a lot of different opportunities for us to utilize the local facilities.
And even use some of their Cytiva, that's a big vendor of ours in all of our biotech activities. So a regular, supply chain of disposable equipment, we use that heavily in our operations.
No, that's great, because oftentimes, the large businesses that we have here in the community, they're sort of in one location, and residents don't necessarily even know that they exist. So the fact that you all are going to be out there and, partaking in the businesses and the hotels is really important. My final question is actually on the slide deck, and my apologies, the slides aren't numbered that I have, but it's the proposed investment plan slide. I know when you went through the presentation, you mentioned the project timeline, and you quickly highlighted some of the phases, but you mentioned that you could go in more depth, and I'd be really interested in hearing about the phases more specifically, or particularly once we head into 2024 and 2025, what that might look like. I'm sure to kind of upgrade the facility as you all need would take a lot of time, and that makes sense to have that, and shaving the 12 to 18 months that you mentioned before is a huge asset, saves a lot of money for the company, but would love to hear a little bit more since that came up during the presentation.
Sure. So we're always trying to anticipate growth, and so we're always trying to ensure that the investments are out in front. So for example, this particular facility, we're pretty sure we don't need the 200,000 square feet tomorrow, which is why we've split the project into two phases, one landing in 2024 and the other landing in 2025. So what we're likely to do, and we're literally in the middle of the engineering design phase right now, is to build out a portion of the facility up front. I can't tell you specifically exactly the percentage of the facility that we'll hit first and second. But that's why we split it into two phases, is we're likely going to build this in two parts. We'll create a site master plan that will envision the whole thing so that we're building smartly about step one and step two, but we're going to split this into pieces to bring on capacity as we need it.
Okay, great. Well,
makes sense?
No, it does.
And that typically to build a plant like this is a 2 to 3 year activity, and you can see phase one, it'll be a heavy lift just to get that phase one done by the middle of next year. Yeah.
So maybe one other comment, just so you can calibrate why are we doing this. We expanded our manufacturing footprint within Moderna very rapidly within the pandemic to keep up with the demand. And one of the things that we had to do, we built out Moderna-owned capacity at Norwood, but we also had to bring on a number of CMOs or contract manufacturing organizations to supplement our capacity. And that's something you do in a normal business environment anyway. But what we're looking to do with this facility is bring on more Moderna-owned capacity so that we can get the balance that we're looking for.
Okay. No, that's really helpful to know, particularly just thinking we have so much development that's happening in the city, particularly in this side. So knowing that there's phasing happening, so it's not like there's a ton all happening at once for, our infrastructure would make sense. And I'm very appreciative of all of your responses and look forward to having you here in Marlborough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dumas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one last question. So I know that in my experience with farmers that when you create a drug, you get licensed for a certain amount of years. And then once that license ends, then things can go generic and that opens up the market. So in regards to Moderna, you talk specifically about a lot of your technologies. Would that be the equivalent of having a license for certain drugs, or is the technology patent and copyrighted or trademarked? So that makes you more viable in the years to come.
It's, I'm not sure if I'm going to answer your question, so please check me if I don't. It's program specific.
Okay.
So each of those 48 programs that I mentioned will have their own patent life.
Okay.
It started at different points in time, depending on when the initial discovery happened.
Okay. So then the patent is obviously owned by your company, so no one else can utilize it to build out something for themselves. It's not like pharma where once that license is up, no one else can use that technology because you have the patent. Would that be fair to say?
Once the patents, well, I'm not a patent attorney, so
and neither am I. Neither am I.
So when you think about the mRNA, it is the platform that the other vaccines, the other drugs are based off of. So each time that there's a new creation off of that, the mRNA itself, I mean, it's something that's out in the public. So there's some parts of that
Sure.
that are already have. I mean, you see Pfizer has something similar, others have those things. But every time we create something new, like our Spikevax is different than Pfizer's, is different than what others would have, and that's the individual part that would get the patent protection going forward. So when we talk about the 48 different drugs or modality, or different drugs that are going forward, each one of those would have a separate individual life going forward.
Okay.
But the facility would get licensed, so the FDA actually, once we determine what product goes in there, it will actually go through a process where the FDA will approve that product for manufacture over 149.
So that product gets licensed, not necessarily the technology. The technology is patented or something.
Right.
So it's almost two separate entities.
It's two separate. There's IP in the core technology, and then
Yep.
there's patent life of a specific drug using that technology.
Gotcha. I just want to, not that I'm questioning your viability,
No,
but I'm just curious to see how long will that actual patent or license last, because I know that there is a big pharma company that just lost their license for a certain drug, and now they did a reorg and had to lay off numerous people here in Marlborough. So I just want to make sure that we're investing, as the city is investing in someone who actually is investing in themselves regarding both the patent and the licensing.
Typically, once you put a product in a facility, it's licensed to run that. There are audits that go on annually to, kind of reapprove it. But it's very costly to move a product from this facility to another one.
Of course.
Because you have to go through that whole process again. So for the life of the product,
Correct.
Right.
it would be, located here in Marlborough.
Perfect. No, that's what I personally like to hear.
Yep.
That you want to stay in Marlborough and build that community. But so thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dumas. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I had the opportunity to drive through your facility earlier today, and it is an astounding facility. I wouldn't say landscaping, but quarry work that was done there really shows a level of investment that would span generations, considering the quality of what was done. Is it fair to say that the technology that you're developing, the platform, is, as revolutionary as antibiotics was in its time, RNA? I mean, that when you talk about, I come from a tech background. I know what platforms are, but they're usually digital. They're not biological. So you're throwing platform out there. The only analogy I see is like when antibiotics came in, it was a platform for addressing, medical issues. Is RNA of that caliber? And
We believe so.
That's fine.
It is a major step change in how drugs can affect human health. So I've been in biotech now, or what we used to call biotech, for over 25 years now. And the most recent biotech revolution was in the late 80s and early 90s when, and I'm going to be a little bit chemistry geeky here for just a moment. I'll try not to go too deep into it, but that big step change in science is where they figured out how to use recombinant DNA technology to get cells to produce a protein in a tank. And so traditional biotechnology is taking these very large tanks, 10,000, 20, so it's a lot of physical stainless steel infrastructure that needs to be maintained to produce cells that then produce the drug in the manufacturing plant. And you would inject that protein into your body to have some effect in some disease area. mRNA is a very different approach in that you're essentially getting inside your human cell and taking advantage of the machinery that already exists within your body to have your cell essentially produce the drug of interest. mRNA, we use the term, it's the software of life. It's essentially the code that is in that mRNA strand encodes for whatever protein that you're trying to make, and your cell produces it. So the science is about how do you make that mRNA strand and how you get it inside the cell, and then its applicability theoretically is limitless in where you can apply it. And so, yeah, we believe it's a pretty significant step change in science and the potential to, and I keep throwing out potential because I want to make sure I'm, it's all not proven yet.
Yeah, it should be a good thing.
It should be a good thing, and that's really what the company was founded on 12 to 13 years ago when Stefan, our CEO, was employee number one and came in and got his head around this vision and plan. And so the pandemic was something that I think opened the rest of the world's eyes to the power of this technology. And now we're really trying to double down and focus on what other good can we do in human health, whether it be in oncology or other therapeutics and different vaccines to really progress this platform.
Thank you for the explanation. It was very enlightening. So we're talking about 200, 250 jobs, 3 shifts. So say, sake of argument, 60 to 80 people per shift in a huge building. So I assume massive amounts of automation also being used within the system.
We're working on that for sure. We have a whole team of really smart engineers that are working on what is the future state of automation for this platform.
So I was under the, it seems that the Norwood facility is doing manufacturing as well as, is research just being done in Cambridge, or is research also being done in Norwood?
Yeah, so basic research, so identifying targets and going after different diseases is mainly based out of Cambridge, but the two things, we call it kind of create and make. So on the create side, our process development teams, so the teams that envision what the future state is of the manufacturing process, live in Norwood, along with the testing groups, the technology around how you evaluate the quality of the product that you're making.
The pilot stage, effectively.
Exactly, and then we produce clinical supply. So all these trials, we're investigating whether or not a drug can work or not. The supplies that go into those clinical trials are manufactured out of Norwood.
And how do you see Marlborough fitting, the Marlborough facility when it's up and running? Is that going to be a volume production play that you guys see as far as how things go? Or is it going to be an extended of the Norwood facility as far as, you know, pilot production, limited production runs? It seems that with a lot of what you're describing, you know, there's a lot of custom and semi-custom variations that are being done within this, because if you're going back to the individual to get DNA samples to then work into the treatment, you know, then it's a whole bunch of one-offs. Is that how am I describing that right?
No, you're fine. So I'll start at 2 levels. One, the original intent for the facility was for commercial production, so approved drugs. That doesn't mean, though, that couldn't change over the coming months and years of whether or not we produce, I'll call it, you know, phase 1, 2 clinical supply. At a very high level, though, it is intended to be a GMP manufacturing facility. And then the scale at which we make batches may or may not be on two different levels. We'll call it large bulk batches that are a lot of the same material that will go
Such
in.
as COVID.
Such as COVID.
Yeah.
Or personalized medicine, such as a personalized vaccine. And that's still being figured out about what does the mix look like.
Right, and you got time to figure that out, and you were trying to build a flexible platform to adapt to all of the above.
You got it.
So good luck with those guys.
Thank you. No, very, very good questions. Thank you. I hope I answered them.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having this go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Doucette. There's no further discussion. I will, Councilor Navin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very quickly, fortunately, nobody asked us to take a chemistry test when we became city councilor, so, although it sounds like some of us could have done well, I am not one of them. So I just want to just talk real quickly about, it's really more of a comment than a question, because I think you guys have run circles around me on the technical aspect of your business, but I think this is very exciting. It's a small thing, but it's pretty neat to turn on the radio in the morning, and when you are constantly hearing about large companies and they say globally headquartered in Marlborough, when you're listening to BUR in the morning is something that's pretty exciting for us. And to add one more to our ranks is something that we as a community should be proud of. We talk a lot about TIFs here and about how, as it was mentioned earlier, that this is a carrot for us. And there are several other things that are carrots for us: the geographic location of the city, the best drinking water in the nation, should be no small part. I work for our water supplier, so I try to tout that. But it is something that we do see in and around the region. And so we're very excited to have you here. I think the TIF is, not just part of the carrot, but also is really an opportunity for us to show companies that we value, that we want to be good partners with them. And we hope that, for you all, it shows that, Marlborough is here for a partnership, but also that we are hoping for a tremendous partnership in return. And I really appreciate what you've laid out here. I think our community, our businesses, our students, and our charitable organizations could benefit greatly from having you here, and I hope that they will. And with that, I will turn back my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Nason. Councilor Landers.
A couple quickies. Would you say that this Marlborough plant will be 100% manufacturing?
100%.
Or a high number of manufacturing?
The facility is intended for GMP, good manufacturing practice, drug manufacturing. So I think that, yes.
So the rest of my question is, do you have a lot of raw materials there? Do they come in and out all the time? And
it's a good question. So we do have raw materials, of course, to manufacture our medicines. I don't know how to calibrate for you the volumes. These are not large volume supplies, but it's a combination of the solutions that are necessary to produce the product, as well as what we call consumables, so plastic, essentially. So bags, tubes, filters, and things like that that are necessary for the drug production process. So we'll have a warehouse that'll be part of the facility where we will store materials that are necessary for production.
Okay. I want to give you a little plug to them. I happened to be in Dana-Farber last Monday, and the doctor, who's become my buddy now because I spent a lot of time in the OR with him, and he says, "What's cooking in Marlborough, Don?" So I told him, I said, "I can't really say too much to the city council meeting tonight," but so we were kidding each other, because when I first went to him, I said, the last doctor gave me 17 years. That's when I had cancer 17 years ago. I said, "What are you going to give me, Doc?" He said, "I'll give you 5. The other day, he said, "Now, with that company in town and the progress that you people are making," he says, "you're going to make that 99th birthday." I'm depending upon you guys.
No pressure. Our mission is very clear.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, councilors, you have before you the TIF, but I think what you see, it's beyond the TIF. What Moderna brings to Marlborough is really going to be a life science hub, right? We've got Boston Scientific, Quest, Cytiva, Hologic, Sanovian, and more. But Moderna coming brings in ancillary companies that we don't even know their names yet. But you heard MEDC talk about vacancy. So we have about 12%. Those will come. They'll follow Moderna's lead here. I'm hoping you all picked up on it. When they said why they want to come to Marlborough, that's everything we've been working on. Business-friendly environment that stabilizes our tax rate, and a quality company that keeps all our smaller fish, i.e. businesses, in business. I mean, I encourage the Finance Committee to look favorable on the TIF and the resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well said. Council Orm.
On that note, and I would also add our infrastructure you can't beat. Best water in the state, MWRA, as Councilor Navin just noted. Actually, the treatment plant for all the MWRA is right next door to you in Marlborough. But also great highway system, reasonable taxes. It is a split rate, but again, it's a win-win, I think, for both the residents and to have you here as well, because you're going to be making a profit and the residents benefit from that split tax rate. With that said, I agree with Councilor Ossing, President Ossing. What a magnet you will be for Marlborough. You know, I've followed your company for years, being in public health, and I think you're going to be a great magnet. And I'm glad it was asked, and I'm glad you answered it about the 20-year TIF, because I was a little concerned, 20 years versus 10, but you explained it, in my view, very well, instead of going for additional ones if you're going to keep growing. And I hope you have room for a third floor someday. And on that note, Mr. Chairman, I will motion to approve the TIF as presented.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. And the motion would be to approve the TIF agreement.
Yep.
And to approve the City Council resolution.
Yes, and I would motion to approve both of those.
I will second that. Motion has been made to approve order number 23-100-8868, tax increment financing agreement with Moderna TX, a biotech company with plans to purchase and operate a biomanufacturing facility and office space at 149 Haynes Memorial Drive, map 99, parcel 3, and this will include the TIF agreement and the City Council resolution. Any further discussion?
I would just like to add that we will need to suspend the rules.
I will agree to the Finance Committee and include suspending the rules. Absolutely. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries 5-0. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. We adjourn at 8:02 p.m. Thank you.